Who is Lady Macbeth? Is she the embodiment of evil? Is she the fourth witch, as some claim she is? I'm going to give you a few pointers and help you through the play to see how she changes during the course of the play. And then I'm going to ask you to form your own opinion, because once again, you will be asked questions on Lady Macbeth's character, perhaps in an essay, perhaps in a contextual. Now, we're going to refer firstly to Malcolm's words when he receives the head of Macbeth being brought to him by Macduff, who killed him, and he calls her the fiend like queen. So he does associate her with evil immediately. And then look what he says after that: who, as it is thought, by self and violent hands took off her life. So this is the evil queen, the fiend-like queen, who eventually takes her own life. Now we're going to follow this path and see how we feel. Now, firstly, we must ask ourselves the question, is she really evil? Is she fiend-like? Now, in the beginning, when we first get to know Lady Macbeth, we see a different picture. For instance, after reading Macbeth's letter about the promises of the Weird Sisters and about receiving the title of Corder, she appears to be a proud, understanding, and supportive wife. She is obviously proud of the new title that he had got, and she is ambitious because he had also received the promise of being king. Let's see what she says. Glamis thou art, and Corder, and shalt be what thou art promised. Okay, so what we see here is a determined person, evil, determined at this point, I'd say. Yet do I fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness that should attend it. What she does immediately when she gets this news is that she believes that the evidence that fate and metaphysical aid have provided for them will get them to finally get to the kingship. In other words, they will be king and queen. Now, what do we see from this quote? We can see that she understands her husband, that he is a good man. She realizes, she knows it. But she sees an expedient way to get to the throne. And that will mean to kill the king, because Macbeth arrives straight after her reading the letters, and he says that the king is on his way. So she realizes that they must make a very quick plan here. So she is determined, and she has plans, and she believes in the evidence. She sees fate, the coming of the king, and the metaphysical aid, the witches that promised that they have those things on their side, and they will become king and queen. Now, let us look at her mind. What is she thinking right here? What is she knowing, and what doesn't she know? She knows, firstly, that her husband's conscience might stop him to act on the predictions, because he's too full of the milk of human kindness. And that she also knows that if they are to get this kingship, if they're going to seize this opportunity that fate is sending them, she would have to assist, because he won't be evil enough to do it. And she's going to have to make herself evil and be strong to help him to be strong. So she knows that her husband needs her assistance, right? So immediately after Macbeth returns with the news that the king is on his way to honor them with a visit, she knows that if she wishes, the evil, remember, the predictions were from evil creatures, right? And she knows they are supernatural and that they are linked to evil. She knows that if she wishes the evil creature's prophecy to come true, she will have to resort to their supernatural natural powers. Isn't that true? She would have to go to them if she wants their help. And then, of course, take advantage of what fate is now doing. She knows that she's going to have to resort to evil because she says the raven himself is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan. The raven, right? The symbol of evil that croaks ominous things that are going to happen. He is being so evil that he's actually hoarse because of the croakings. Under my battlements, in other words, when the raven knows what's going to happen in this castle, he's almost hoarse with croaking. And then she says, "Come, you spirits." And then she calls on the spirits of evil. Now, some people then say, okay, look at this. She's an evil woman. She calls on the spirits of evil. But keep this bit of background in mind, the situation. She has to make a plan, and a quick plan. The predictions came from an evil source. So if she wants their help, she must call for them. So she is pressed for time. She sees the need to put on appearances when Duncan visits. She knows the first thing she must tell Macbeth to do is to put on appearances. She says, look, the king is coming. But she says, your face, my lord, is like a book where men may read strange matters. To beguile the time, look like the time. Bear welcome in your eye, your hand, your tongue. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. He that's coming must be provided for, and you shall put this night's great business into my dispatch. So I know you're full of the milk of human kindness, but please don't let it show in your face. I'll take care of this, right? Then she starts, of course, with a manipulation and emasculation of Macbeth. Now, because Macbeth, on the one hand, he wants the kingship. On the other hand, he cannot conceive that he will have to do such a terrible thing, such as to kill the king. And he's dithering this way, that way. But she doesn't understand Macbeth's moral dilemma, and this is something you need to keep in mind. She doesn't have the moral background of Macbeth, who considers the evil and the good in deeds and the moral aspects of it. To her, it's just, let us do the deed. Fate has helped us. I've asked the evil spirits, you just sit tight. I'll make sure that this happens, right? But she doesn't understand the moral consequences. That's very important. And then she resorts to manipulation and emasculation of Macbeth. And she's harsh. She really breaks him down. And she says, if you don't do this, you will be a coward, right? She says, what's wrong with you? And we all know that Macbeth is not a coward. He's just fought very courageously in the war. But she says, then you'll be a coward. If you don't do it, you'll be a coward, and you will not be a man if you refuse to continue with the plan, because somehow during the course of our talks, you have said that you will go along with it. Now suddenly you say you're not going along with it. So, and she says to him, was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? And wakes it now to look so green and pale, so cowardly, at what it did so freely? From this time, look at this cruel stab. She says, from this time, such I account thy love. You said you will commit the deed, and now you say you're not going to commit the deed. So, next time when you say, I love you, I will also think, perhaps just now you're going to tell me I don't love you. So, look at the deep stabs that you actually inflicts on Macbeth. From this time I shall account my love. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valour as thou art in desire? So she wants him sort of to do what he says that he wants to do. But just previously, she had asked him to put on appearances. So she's really getting to Macbeth. And remember, she said that she will take care of the business. And we need to ask ourselves, how courageous is she really? Is she able to take care of the business? Can she keep up appearances? Yes, she can. Can she cruelly manipulate? Yes, she can. But she cannot do the deed herself. She says to Macbeth once again in a very cruel quote here, I have given suck. I've had a baby and I've fed this baby with my own milk. And I know how tender it is to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from its boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this. This is clearly just manipulation. She doesn't really remember. If you talk about Lady Macbeth, don't say, oh, she's such a cruel woman, she plucked the baby. That's not what she said. That's what I would do if I had promised to do that. She is manipulating Macbeth here. So she's not guilty of cruelty here, but of manipulation and of course of psychological cruelty towards Macbeth. So with all this courage, she says afterwards, had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it. She didn't have the courage to do it herself. So we see things move up to a certain point. We see her at her most cruelest. We have seen the cruelest of Lady Macbeth. Because once they get the throne, and after the murder and the anointment, when Lady Macbeth and Macbeth are both reigning, she still doesn't understand that the deed that they did might have consequences that she herself could not have foreseen, because she has no concept of morality such as Macbeth has. So she doesn't understand, that's important to remember, the consequences of the deed. And also, there is an unexpected rift between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. He's driven away from her. He doesn't share anything with her anymore. He doesn't call her pet names. So that makes it very sad and very unhappy. And she doesn't understand the fancies. In other words, the torture in his mind, the moral torture that he's undergoing straight after becoming king. And all she knows is what she feels. She feels unhappy. She did not foresee this. So she says, naught's had, all's spent, where our desire is got without content. So what did we do this for? We got our desire, but we're not happy. So then everything is spent. It was all for nothing. And then she says, how now, my lord? Can you see she doesn't understand? Why do you keep alone? Why are you moving away from me? Of sorriest fancies, and what's going on in your head? Of sorriest fancies, your companions making. So this is where the turning point is, where things don't work out the way she thought it had worked out. And then after that, we don't see any more cruelty in Lady Macbeth. It's just a downward spiral. and we see a tormented soul. And we're going to look at that in the next lesson.